What do face masks in the housing market have in common for Q2 2020? They both remain hot. Hi, I'm Veronica Woods from Daniel Woods Real Estate. And if you're looking to learn more about how you can build a rental property portfolio that will support you into retirement and help you provide a legacy to your next generation, you're going to want to hit this subscribe button so you can find out about my next videos. Now, in this video, I'm going to be talking about the latest housing stats for both Philadelphia and suburban Delaware County. Now, all the stats, like most of my market updates or all of my market updates, are coming directly from Bright MLS, our local MLS, and excludes any transactions that were done off market. Now, before I dive into the nitty-gritty details and pricing trends, I want to give you the headline that has continued to be, or has been my headline for the last few market updates, which is the story has been that it's a seller's market driven by a shortage in supply and inventory of homes. So with roughly 50% less homes on the market for sale, that translated into roughly 50% less homes sold for Q2 2020. So let's jump right into the stats for Q2 2020. Starting in Delaware County, this slide shows the top 5 zip codes in terms of sales transactions. And these 5 zip codes alone made up 44% of the sales volume for Delaware County. Drexel Hill and Havertown are no strangers to being at the top of that list. If I point out the days on market column, a really good, important stat to look at in terms of the pace of the market. The overall days on market for Delaware County were 47 days. You can see from this list that Havertown was quite below that with 27 days. So definitely a lot of quick sales happening in Havertown for Q2. If we look at pricing trends for these 5 zip codes, you can see Drexel Hill at 40.6% increase year over year, is far above the average for across all of Delaware County, which was 6.5%. The other thing to point out, Media and Aston had a relative decline. I would call Media the 1.4% relatively flat, but Aston 4.8% decline. Definitely of note considering the overall continued upward trend in pricing. If we turn to Philadelphia, and I'm going to focus on the zip codes in West Philadelphia that I typically track. So looking at the top 5 or the order of the top 5 is really pretty consistent with what you see quarter over quarter. I will point out that the days on market overall for Philadelphia was roughly 68. So most of these zip codes are in line with that. You can see in 19151, it was a little quicker at 35, but quite a bit less in transactions. So one thing to point out in terms of I'm highlighting where were most of the sales in Philadelphia across all the Philadelphia zip codes for Q2 2020 was actually in Grays Ferry, a Point Breeze zip code with 201 sales. So, you got to kind of keep things relative with the averages of knowing where most of the sales volume happened in Philadelphia this quarter. And I also will point out the other zip codes that had the most transaction were a number of zip codes that were in the South Philadelphia area as well as in Fishtown. In terms of pricing, most of the areas in West Philadelphia is pretty much in line with the price appreciation across Philadelphia with 10.9%. And the areas in Winfield, Overbrook, areas that I'm showing a slight decline, it is I would call that relatively flat pricing over Q2. Now those were all single family stats. I did want to touch on multifamily pricing because I have a lot of clients looking at multifamily acquisition. So if you look at June year to date, so looked at a little longer time horizon because there definitely are less sales. So for Delaware County, the average price per unit of duplexes, and I just pulled the stats of duplexes alone to give a more apples to apples comparison. For Delaware County, it was $80,000 per unit, which was an 8.8% pricing change year over year, and $107,000 per unit across Philadelphia. Again, a 10.2% price increase year over year, which is pretty consistent with what I showed you in terms of single family pricing appreciation. Now, before I wrap up, I do want to cover one more trend that really has fueled home buyers and shoppers in the market in Q2 2020, and that is the record low mortgage rates. A group called Black Knight put out a study recently that showed that homes have not been this affordable in the Philadelphia area since October of 2016. So even with all the uncertainties, people are looking to take advantage of the record cheap mortgage debt in this country. Now, if you want some insight about where to invest in evaluating different zip codes like the ones that I talked about on this video, you'll want to check out the video that's just popping up on the right on the screen about how to pick your investment criteria. Thanks again for watching another video. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you'll know when the next one is published.